In this segment, we'll be unpacking the candidates' manifestos, starting with what they have to say about the economy. We've got the elephants in the room out of the way, and now it's time to look towards the future and what plans the candidates have. We will start with the question of debt. Uganda currently owns about $6 billion in debt, and the debt-to-GDP ratio has been growing every year since 2008. We'd like to hear from each candidate what plans you have to deal with this. We'll start with you, Professor Barryamureba.
How much time?
2 minutes.
I hope it is strictly 2 minutes. Thank you very much. When it comes to debt management, the issue of debt, I would like to look at controlling public expenditure. That will help us save some money and service the debt. I would like to look at controlling the issue of acquiring more debt. I would like to look at the issue of public service reform, because that also will bring down the money we are spending as government. We can use some of that money to repay the debt. The other issue is to expand the economic activities, supporting the private sector. And one of the areas that we need to focus on is an agricultural policy, where we increase agricultural production. Once we do that, we're able to make more money and then service the debt. The other one, of course, is to increase employment opportunities, because as government, we collect money like payee.
How will you do that specifically?
Sorry?
How will you do that specifically?
Increasing employment opportunities.
Yes.
You've just heard that 83% of Ugandans are unemployed. So I have plans of, for example, creating 1 million jobs every year in the business process outsourcing. This is where you can work for companies in America and Europe when you're based here. If you are a teacher, you can do online tutoring. If you're an accountant, you can do bookkeeping. If you're a receptionist, you can receive calls from here. If you're a data analyst, you can analyze data.
I've heard that before from President Museveni, you know.
Sorry?
He's actually said it before. President Museveni planned that in his previous manifesto. He said that he'd do those things. And obviously these things aren't happening. Why should you be the one to
He planned it and he didn't have capacity to do it. I'm a professor of computer science. I'm a professor of computer science, and I've been doing consultants in this area. And for the countries that have done it for them, they have excelled in it. And so I'm going to ensure that this is something we shall focus on as a country and increase employment opportunities. But of course, the other sectors, like tourism sector, we are going to create more jobs, collect more money in the payee and other areas. We are looking at also utilizing our resources, like the minerals, the oil. All that will help us to clear the debt.
You know, I'm hoping, Madam Chalia, you'll be a little more specific, because I've learned nothing about how Professor Barryamureba plans to achieve those things in specific detail. I'm wondering from you, he talks about, for example, youth employment. Talk to me in specific detail how you're planning to achieve that, because that is very easy to talk about at a rally somewhere in Bukoman Simbi, but how do you actually do it?
Yes, let me show you the example.
I'd like Ms. Chalia to respond to that.
Thanks very much. Before I get to that, I would like to raise my concern that if we're going to participate in this debate, we have to be allocated time fairly. In the last question, I felt that all my colleagues, but me and Professor Barryamureba, we are not given time to actually answer our questions. So please, moderators, could you kindly answer our questions equally? Thank you.
Okay.
Now, back to your question.
Please.
I have been around, actually, when you are a presidential advisor and aide on poverty alleviation, that means you are a senior consultant. So I've been a senior consultant in the field, and I have done the studies. Now, what I'll do in Uganda, I'll use a strength-based approach, because I've had a chance to study the different communities in Uganda, and each community has something they do. For instance, in Busoga, the agriculturalists, the Itesos are cattle keepers. In Western Uganda and Uganda, it's mainly Matoke. So what I'll do is to make sure I use their strengths and encourage them as a community, restoring cooperatives, putting, for instance, mechanized agriculture in place, commercialized agriculture, and organizing people according to their strengths. In doing this, I'm considering collective responsibility and definitely a task-centered approach. What does this mean? That I'll be setting 3 things. For instance, in the next 5 years, let me just use it as for an illustration. I need to make sure that their cattle is restocked. I need to make sure that their cattle industry is restored, and I need to make sure that I balance the communication between Teso and Karamoja so that the cattle rustling does not continue, actually to make sure that there is love between the communities. And I believe when it comes to the whole of Uganda, we are wealthy, we have everything we need, we just need to work together collectively, and we shall get out of that. Thank you.
Do you feel like you've had enough time this time?
Sorry?
You feel like you've had enough time?
Not really, because I didn't, but it's okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Besigye, your thoughts on reducing debt?
Yes, thank you very much. And I think the debt question is a very, very serious one for our country, because not long ago, our debt was actually forgiven almost entirely. And we are back more than where we were without showing anything for it. So one of the things that really one must do if we are to address any of the serious problems we have in this country is to address the question of accountability. Because most of the debt that we are contracting is debt that goes into private pockets. If it was going into production, then it would be going a long way into repaying itself. So really we must tackle corruption, and in tackling this, the starting point obviously must be people with the will to do so, the will to fight corruption. And I think that is one of the things that have been truly lacking in most of the administrations. It's something that I would offer indeed, the will to fight.
What is the will to fight? What does that even mean?
The will is the commitment. The commitment.
But how do you implement a will to fight? How do you do that?
Well, by doing what you are supposed to do.
Yeah, but still you're not answering. What does doing what you're supposed to do is what civil servants think they do every day in this country. How do you implement the will that you're talking about? How?
The will is not implemented. The will is effected.
How?
Is effected by doing what you commit yourself to do. If you wake up in the morning saying, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, and you don't do it, then you have no will to do what you want to do. So one judges the will by what our experience, and this is why in these elections it's important that the electorate indeed interrogates the candidates' backgrounds, whether they have been able to do what they commit to do, or whether they just talk and don't do what they commit to do. So that is, a will is judged by performance of what you intend to do. But secondly, beyond the will, quite obviously, it's important that we focus on the laws that relate to management of corruption, the dealing with corruption, and we have specific
like
suggestions to strengthen the laws that relate to corruption, improving transparency, improving the following of what leaders acquire in office and so on. We have specific proposals in that area. The third area, of course, is strengthening the institutions themselves that deal with corruption, to make them more independent, to make them more competent, to resource them, so that they are able to do what they intend to do. And corruption, as I have said, is only one area. But beyond corruption, the question of debt must be solved by increasing productivity and reducing consumption. And increasing productivity is one area.
I'm afraid you're out of time. There was a little more time because Alan had a rebuttal.
Yeah.
But we'll have to move on to the next candidate now. Mr. Mabirizi, what are your thoughts on reducing debt?
Thank you, moderators. Allow me to read the People's Manifesto, the People's Voice. This is what Ugandans say about the national debt. This manifesto was generated from people of Uganda. So this is what they say.
We prefer that you speak to us.
I'm reading the People's Voice.
We prefer that you speak to us without reading. Please, if I may respectfully ask you to do that. We'd like to hear your thoughts. I'm sure we can get access to the
I'm not standing on my own. As I told
you can distill for us what is in that. Kindly, sir. We're here to hear your thoughts today.
The current government is borrowing money without putting the measures how debts should be managed. So, what we are going to do is this. We are going to make sure that there is proper debt management.
What does that even mean? What do you mean proper debt management? Like what? Give me specific examples of what you're talking about.
Yeah, what I'm talking about is this. A lot of money that we borrow from outside, it is being embezzled and misused. So once you fight corruption, you have enough money to pay back the debts.
Okay, so
and this is what we are going to do about corruption.
Let me tell you one thing that every single politician in this campaign is likely to say: we are going to fight corruption. That is a standard statement. So I'm really interested in hearing how you are going to fight it.
But Ugandans are interested.
I'm saying
so
I'm interested in hearing.
That question. Why don't you allow me to answer the question about the debt?
So what are you going to do specifically to fight corruption?
Number one, it's about debt management. How are you handling the money you've borrowed from outside? That's number one. Then a lot of money is being misused. That's why I'm saying, in order to pay the debt, you need to deal away with corruption.
Thank you very much, sir.
I'm fighting corruption. I have the best approach. Okay. You need to make sure that you don't just drag the culprits into prison, but make sure that you confiscate their property, and there is a committee to sell them off, and you inject that money into health, education, and other services.
Okay.
Number two, those
much.
people must be denied any government job for at least 15 years.
Thank you, sir. I'm afraid that's our time there. Let's hear from you, Major General Biraro.
Yeah, debt management is a big issue, but I look at it from the other point of view. Look, where are we as Uganda? We are HIPIC, heavily indebted poor country, as they have said. And how do we get from there? Wealth creation. This is why I am committed to devoting 3 trillion to agriculture following the Maputo Declaration. 3 trillion. So that every district is an export zone of some kind. That must be done. Secondly,
okay,
I am looking at tourism.
Just about that. Export zone of some kind, exporting to who?
Come again?
How do you export from those districts to wherever you're proposing?
Exporting to who?
Yeah.
You are asking?
I am seriously asking you that because, because you have districts, you have problems with infrastructure, we have no airline, we barely have a functional railway system. So where do these things that you're talking about?
I get you now. Exporting is to outside countries, to the buyers. But my point was, we have had so many districts as units, political units, but they are not economic units. They are sucking from the central government. So I am saying zoning must ensure that every district becomes an economic unit, and that will happen with that, because when I devote 33 trillion, on average, each district is going to receive 30 billion from central government to invest in agriculture. That's number one. Number two, I went to France. France is the first tourist country in the world. And they have 60 million people. They receive 80 million tourists every year. I am going to work hard so that Uganda can receive 10 million. That would be giving us $8 billion income, much more than even oil can do that. And that's what, three, the question of human in the long run, our human resource capacity. I'm working seriously on that. So that productivity, because when you compare us, the index, development index in the region,
I'm afraid that's as much time as Alan took from you. Thank you very much. Let's go to Honorable Mbabazi. We are on the subject of debt reduction. Your thoughts?
I want to state very clearly that borrowing money, being in debt, is all right. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, I've been telling those peasants that I meet on my tour that the rich people they see are rich on other people's money. And the question is, to what use you put the money you borrow? And my problem is that Uganda is not a productive nation. We have a problem of not being able to export much, and yet we import so much. There is an imbalance there. So what we need to do is to make sure that we have a system in place, and we are proposing it in our manifesto, have a system in place that turns the entire force, especially the young, able-bodied Ugandans, to work so that we become productive, so that we are able to produce enough to export to other markets, and we are able to pay back.
You know, Right Honorable Mbabazi, listening to you talk, it seems like this is an epiphany. You've been in government for 30 years. You know, what took you so long to realize that you can actually do those things, and why didn't you do them before?
Who said it took me long?
So why didn't you do them when you still had the opportunity while you were still in government? What was the problem with that?
Well, let me tell you something about government in Uganda. The Constitution of the Republic of Uganda puts all executive power in the hands of the President. All those who work under him, and have been telling this to the peasants, all those who work under him, in this case it is a him, actually execute delegated authority.
I'd just like to suggest
and
something.
I have therefore been dutifully performing what he that wields the power wanted me to do.
I don't know how many Ugandans will believe you when you say that. Because, just to give you an example, Super Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Attorney General, all these things, defense security rolled into one. And then suddenly you claim that you are a lame duck appointee of the president. That does not add up. It doesn't make sense. So one has to wonder, what is it about reducing debt that you're likely to do now that you weren't able to do before, and what exactly was the problem with you doing it before now, if that makes sense?
You know, Alan, I think there is something wrong with the system, because I don't pick, maybe we get very close like this, then we might get what you're saying. What was the point?
I think my bigger point here is, you need to own up to the fact that you are part of the system, basically. And those ideas that you seem to want to implement now could have been implemented with your influence in the past. And the question is, what are the mistakes that were made before that you're able to correct now and move forward with them? Why couldn't you do it before?
Well, I think now it's a debate between hypothesis and fact. I represent fact. What I'm saying is actually what happened. It's true, I have been all those things you've mentioned, but I am also telling you that power in Uganda and our constitutional arrangement.
Did you struggle to reduce debt when you were in government?
Pardon?
Did you struggle with debt reduction when you were in government?
You see, when you're in government, you have what they call collective responsibility. You have free debate within cabinet, and whatever the majority decides is actually what is done. In this case, the cabinet itself performs an advisory role to the president, and whatever they say need not be what is carried. So I am absolutely proud of what I did all the time I was in government, my contribution, both in giving ideas which were not accepted and giving ideas that were accepted. So I am perfectly happy with it.
Thank you. Dr. Abed Bwanika.
First of all, our debt to GDP ratio, the percentage is currently 36%. America, they are indebted over 16 trillion. For us, we are worried with 7 billion, just 7 billion. That is our worry. The problem is not borrowing. Any government, any serious government that wants to do business, we will borrow. The problem is whether you have put that money into productive areas. Our issue here in Uganda, we have borrowed money which we have committed, and we are paying commitment fee on money which we are not using. There is a lot of money within finance which we are not using. We simply go in because we don't have a serious parliament. We have people whom we are sending to parliament who must be somewhere in a village council. We need serious people in that parliament. We must put a debt ceiling if we want to manage this debt. We must put a debt ceiling. And we must have a serious parliament doing the oversight role in this issue of the debt ceiling. Secondly, we are talking about a debt, it's not only foreign debt. We also have a domestic debt which also distorts the economy here. Government comes in through Bank of Uganda with treasury bills and bonds, and they raise the interest rates. So the people of Uganda end up not accessing money for credit from the banks, and that is a huge problem. That is a huge problem. We must, if we want to manage this debt, number one, we must expand our economy. There are three ways government can get money: through revenue, tax revenue, and
I'm afraid your time is up, Dr. Bwanika. But as we continue this discussion around the economy, you've mentioned reducing a debt, and you've talked about the debt ceiling. Now, one of the things that you have promised in your manifesto is laptops to children. A laptop per child up to primary 4, as well as school uniforms and lunch. How are you going to achieve promises like those while trying to keep debt manageable?
As I've told you, our GDP, our economy, is one of the smallest in the whole world. It is only 27 billion. The richest man in the whole world, Bill Gates, has 79 billion, richer than Uganda times 3. We must be ashamed as a nation to 40 million people that someone is richer than us times 3. What I'm going to do is to expand the economy of Uganda. We must ensure that every Ugandan is included within the monetized economy. I want to empower the ordinary people so that they can produce. That's why I want to invest 15% of the national budget into agriculture, so that we improve our exports and money will come in. When we improve our exports, and there are so many people within the economy, the money that we collect as tax revenue and non-tax revenue, it will increase. I'm not talking about giving a laptop, basing myself on the budget of Uganda, which is 24 trillion. I'm talking about doubling Uganda's economy, using agriculture, using tourism, attracting Ugandans who are outside this country to invest into this country, and also ensure that the nations around us, they come to Uganda as a trade hub. When we do that, our economy will double.
Thank you, sir.
And Right Honorable Mbabazi, you proposed something that is called the sub-county model, and you proposed the creation of 444,160 jobs in your manifesto. And you've also proposed to increase the allocation to agriculture to 10% from the current 3%. And you expect that there'll be a creation of government jobs. I wonder if all these promises can actually be achieved without plunging Uganda into even more debt.
I think they are achievable. The advanced sub-county model is to turn the sub-county into the hub of development and transformation of the community within the sub-county. And first of all, we will restore cooperative societies so that the marketing of goods by these producers and even the production itself is controlled and they benefit from advantages of scale. And the idea here is that with government expenditure from the budget, we would be able to build the advanced sub-county model to turn the sub-county into a partnership in development between the government and the people, so that we encourage productive forces within the sub-county. And we establish an agricultural commodities exchange which will do the marketing, find exports, find markets for export of our goods. This is the point I had been making earlier, that we really must be a productive nation. And in order to do that, the government must be organized and create an atmosphere where production, which has been going on, but not succeeding, simply because the people who are productive have not had any help from outside. And what we are trying to do is to create a framework for sustainable production.
Thank you, sir. Your time ends there, but thank you for that. We'll go to Ms. Chalya. What is your understanding of the Ugandan economy? Is it in crisis? And if it is, what should be done about it?
Yes, it is in crisis, and obviously because of the extravagance, the corruption, and also the godlike leadership we have, whereby the president of this country is actually a god who wakes up one morning and says, I'm going to spend 18 billion to buy hoes. Whether people want them or not, that's what I'm going to do. So there is a very big mismatch between what we need as a nation and what is being spent in terms of those dates. Having said that, Uganda and Africa is the richest continent, and all the rich countries actually got their gold and get their minerals to date from here, America, Europe, China, everywhere. So I believe we are not that desperate. We just need to get united, get together, work together, use the wealth that God gave us, and within 1 year actually we can pay off the debt and also get wealthy as a country.
So if you became president, what 3 things would you do to ensure that you achieve what you just talked about?
That's the summary of my manifesto. Starting point, unity. We need to get together. When one person does something, Chalya comes up and says, I'm fighting poverty in Busoga. Another politician comes and fights it and brings the whole Busoga backward. That's just an example. So we need to be united, work together and for the same thing. We need to get to the equality issue. Uganda is absolutely unbalanced. If you want to find children without shoes, get the other side of the Nile. If you want to find children decently dressed, get one side. If you want to find children studying under trees, go to the other side of the Nile, the eastern, northern side of the Nile. If you want to find children studying in double-storied houses, go to the western side of the Nile. So there is a very, very great imbalance in Uganda, and if we balance it up just by balancing the infrastructures like roads, then the farmers are going to be able to bring their produce actually to the market. We have waiting markets. United Arab Emirates has no food. They have no land. Uganda can produce food to United Arab Emirates and everybody can be rich. But that inequality is affecting us. And of course, it has to be through affirmative action because 80% of the labor in Uganda is provided by women. But those women are disempowered completely. We do not have a right to property. We do not have a right to make decisions. We don't even own our children, whom we actually die giving birth to. So if we do balance up that, I'm sure as a nation, we are going to progress, because our brothers, the men, need us, and we need them, and together we can.
Okay, Dr. Besigye, what is it about the current government's economic policy that you disagree with the most? What particular economic policy, Dr. Besigye now, what particular economic policy do you disagree with the most?
I would say to
I'm asking Dr. Kizza.
Dr. Chiza, no, I'm going to say to three people, Dr. Chiza Besigye, Dr. Biraro, and Honorable Amama Mbabazi, because they were all integral in forming the NRM system. The NRM system does not respect the culture of Uganda. It does not respect the foundations of Uganda. When Uganda was made, we have different characteristics. We have every single previous kingdom or state, say the Itesos, the Vasuga, the Baganda, every single group has their own characteristics that ought to be respected. But the NRM system makes us like all uniform children, does not allow the community to input.
Your point is duly noted. And if the technicians can make sure that the monitors are loud enough for the people on the podiums to hear, that would be very appreciated. I'm going to give you an opportunity to come back to that. Dr. Besigye, she's basically saying you are one of the architects of the system. Whether you've tried to delink yourself from it or not, you, Major General Biraro, Amama Mbabazi, Yoweri Museveni are cut from the same cloth. What do you say to that?
Well, I have never at any moment distanced myself from being one of the architects of the NRM system. And the NRM system was a good system. It's not the system that Mr. Museveni is running. Mr. Museveni simply deserted the NRM system and is now, operating a very, monstrous system compared to what the NRM system was. Let me tell you what the NRM system was based on. The NRM system was based on reconstructing the foundations of the country. Because all the other things you see, and this is very instructive, most of the other things you want to talk about, whether it's, building the infrastructure, whether it's the policies of taxation and so on, they must be constructed on the basis of a democratic society, where there is accountability, where there is transparency in whatever is being done. Once those are not there, you are in the wilderness. You can espouse all kinds of beautiful programs. They will never function.
So talk to me about the economic policy that you disagree with the most in this country. What is it? Because I hear you. I hear the rhetoric. I hear the political statements you make. I see the anecdotes you point out. What I don't hear very specifically are your policies.
Are the policies?
Yes.
Well, you must be hearing from a very different environment from the one we operate in. Because, first of all, the privatization process that took place in this country, which was, a perfect policy, it was done in a way that it...
But you understand, though, that by giving me the privatization policy, you're taking me back, and yet I'm asking you about the future of this country. I'm asking you where we are going from here on. And the point is, how are we going to move this? What economic policies are we seeing at the moment that are not progressive?
Very well, very well. The most important thing is to put our money where our people are. And as I think a number of the panelists here have pointed out, one of the critical areas for our country in terms of production is real agriculture. And this has been the area that has been most starved. In fact, the budget for agriculture is less than the budget for the presidency. Yet 80%, more than 80% of our people derive livelihood from agriculture. So one of the areas we, radically differ from what the NRM is doing is the investment in agriculture, to make it an engine of production and an engine for the economy. We, of course, would want to also differ from the NRM in terms of the industrialization agenda. Because for the NRM, they have just left the industrialization agenda to foreign investors.
But they're building roads, they're trying to increase the capacity of electricity to encourage people to come and manufacture.
Pardon?
They're building roads, they're working on increasing the capacity of electricity. So you cannot necessarily say that nothing is being done.
Well, saying that nothing has been done is obviously your own words. I haven't used any such words here. But talking about what you say they are doing, you know, this government has been in place for 30 years. The cost of constructing 1 kilometer of tarmac road in Uganda is 10 times the cost of constructing a similar road anywhere in the region. So if you talk about constructing 100 kilometers, you would have done 1,000, maybe 5,000 kilometers. We are talking about Bujagali Dam, which they are singing about. Bujagali Dam was constructed at a cost of more than $1 billion for 250 megawatts. This is 4 times what could have been done with the money that built Bujagali.
I hate to belabor.
In one Bujagali, we lost 4 Bujagali.
Thank you, Dr. Basije. I'm going to have to stop both of you there so we can move on to another candidate and make sure everyone gets a chance to speak. Professor Bariamureba, I'm going to present this issue as it was presented to us on social media. Someone called Doreen Namanya asked the question, for nearly a decade now we've heard that there is oil in Uganda, but beyond that we do not know the other details pertaining to its extraction. The kinds of contracts that have been signed between oil companies and the government we know nothing of. Basically, we're in the dark about this oil and how it benefits us. How will you ensure that there is transparency, openness, and accountability on oil and other resources? And we can probably start with asking whether you've seen any of the agreements that have been made about oil.
Thank you very much. When it comes to the oil sector, in terms of transparency, my view is that the oil companies must publish what they pay to the government. And the government must publish what it earns from these oil contracts. And also must publish what it spends. So when you look at in the current contracts, we have not yet reached production stage, but I think there is a lot that needs to be done. And one of the things we need to do is to go back and consult all the stakeholders and come up with good laws that can help us to ensure that there is transparency in the way we do things. Because as of today, most of the contracts are negotiated in State House. We want to see institutions handling that. Like Parliament given more powers. The Parliament will be given more powers to decide on who takes what.
Thank you. I would just like to ask if there is anyone on the stage who has actually seen these agreements that are made about oil. Has anyone seen the share agreement? Ms. Chalia, have you seen them?
I have not seen the agreement, but I'm 100% sure that the people of Toro, none of them is actually a beneficiary in those agreements, because even the companies that have been named in the oil deals are international companies, so already we have a very big problem in Uganda.
Okay, and now to you, Mr. Mabirizi, as an engineer, I wonder what your thoughts are about the viability of the oil sector. Is it still viable? The oil sector, is it still viable? Mr. Mabirizi.
Your voice at times is slow. I don't know whether it's because
I do apologize if there's a technical problem here, and I do ask you guys to make sure that the monitors are loud enough for the candidates to hear. My question to you is, given the current oil prices, would you consider the oil sector viable for Uganda at the moment?
We have oil, But what I have to say about having oil in Uganda, it's not about maybe building the refinery here. I will consider building the refinery at the coast of Kenya. And when we talk about oil,
there is a refinery at the coast of Kenya.
Yes.
Kenya has a refinery, but I'm still asking you about whether it is still worth investing in the oil sector in Uganda at the current oil prices.
Thank you. Investing in oil, it is not the major source of income that we should invest into. There are some other things that we should inject money into to boost our economy. Take an example of agriculture and tourism. So I think there is a need to inject more money in agriculture and in tourism rather than injecting more money in oil, because oil prices are going down all over the world apart from here in Uganda.
All right, thank you very much to all our candidates. We're going to take another short break so you can have some time to confer with your advisors and take a little break. And when we get back, we will continue with this discussion. Thank you.